First of all, I am not a scholared conservative. I'm not a political science major.
Hello again, everyone. I'm James, and this is Fundie Fridays. Today, we're going to be talking about Congresswoman Lauren Boebert from Colorado's 3rd District. She's far and away the most requested Christian political figure up to this point, and I'm excited to continue this little unofficial deep dive we've got going into the saddest and scariest of the modern GOP. Notably, before I started researching this episode, Jen thought that Lauren Boebert was the same person as Lacey Chabert. That being said, you're going to see some parallels between Lauren's life and career and the 2004 hit Mean Girls. But before we get into all that congressional fun, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor.
Y'all, I am so excited to talk to you about today's sponsor, the one and only Casetify. I mean, just look at all these beauties. And if you too want the stylish protection that only Casetify can offer, then make sure to go to casetify.com/Fundie Fridays to get 15% off of your order. Besides their amazing drop coverage, which we'll get to, I want to talk to you about these amazing designs. Casetify cases make great gifts too. There's even a few that I saw that I wanted to get for my fellow YouTubers. I wonder if the cow is team iPhone or Android. So whether I'm going for something simple like these cute little dachshunds, or this one which is like a mirrored psychedelic daydream, to this one which is customized with my moniker and has this cool stuff that floats down. I might be a simple person, but I mean, I could be entertained by this for hours. To this one, which is possibly my favorite. Now, I have stickers on my phone, so sometimes you can't see things that are see-through, but this is what it looks like without a phone. And you can see all of the cute little hearts and glitter that are on there. These cases are so cute. They're also really protective. Mine came with a special protector just for the cameras and a screen protector. I know I'm always dropping my phone, sometimes on the bathroom floor. What? Everybody does it. And now I feel even less shame with my toilet browsing because I know that Casetify's cases are equipped with Defensify, an antimicrobial coating that kills 99% of bacteria. They're also non-toxic and non-hazardous if you needed any more reason to love Casetify. While their impact cases are really awesome and drop-proof up to 6.6 feet, the piece de resistance has got to be their Ultra Impact cases. The Ultra Impact cases use Casetify's Chi-Tech 2.0 technology, which uses recycled and plant-based material, by the way. Chi-Tech technology is an impact-absorbing material engineered with a dual-layer construction to protect your phone from drops up to 9.8 feet. That's 3 meters for my European friends. This shock-dispersing material is lined inside the case bumper, protecting all 4 corners. And yes, we are going to test out this drop technology right now. Here we go. Maybe you're not understanding the impact because this is a carpet. Let me throw it at the bookshelf. As you can see, no tears, no marks. The phone is perfect. The case is beautiful. I love it. So if you're thinking about upgrading your phone case and you want the stylish protection of Casetify, you can go ahead and go to www.casetify.com/Fundie Fridays to get 15% off of your order. And let's say that you do click on the link and get yourself a Casetify case. You can actually send in your old phone cases to be upcycled and given a new life. That's right, as a part of their Re-Casetify program, they will accept any old phone case regardless of brand, and you'll even get a special discount for recycling your old phone case. So far, over 51,000 cases have been given a second life from this program, and it really brings a tear to my eye. Thanks again to Casetify for sponsoring this video. I love these things. I was just chomping at the bit to get sponsored by you guys. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video, and remember, if you would like a cute protective phone case, go to casetify.com/Fundie Fridays to get 15% off of your order. Bye-bye!
I know I said we'd start now, but I have a couple more housekeeping things. First of all, for those of you who haven't visited us before, on this channel we talk about Christian fundamentalism and Christian fundamentalist politicians. Normally my partner Jen does her makeup. I don't do my makeup, and I've recently learned that that upsets a great many of you. To be perfectly honest, the reason I don't do makeup in my videos is because I don't know how to do it very well. I feel like I would cause problems trying to balance talking about these complex subjects with struggling through a hand-eye coordination task that I don't know how to do very well. So I figured just stick with the talking and leave the makeup to Jen for now.
Never half-ass 2 things. Whole ass 1 thing.
But for all of those who've been requesting it, please know that I have been practicing and learning and finding out a whole bunch of new stuff. I did recently learn that you can't make a smoothie with a beauty blender, which was disappointing. Honestly though, I might start doing my makeup in these videos because I know y'all are really interested in that, and as a simultaneous fan of Drag Race and professional wrestling and the Oakland Raiders of Las Vegas, it's in my blood to really enjoy fancy face paint. Also, I want to thank everyone who took the time to sit down and watch the last video I made covering Paula White. I know it was a real doozy, one of our first 60-plus minute Fundie Fridays episodes, but it means a lot to me that so many of you took the time to watch. Today, though, I've got my working viewers in mind. I have learned a lot of you watch our videos on lunch breaks, and I'm going to try and keep it under 60 minutes today. That way you can finish it without having to come back to it after work. I also wanted to take a moment to address a criticism I got regarding the Paula White video. I really didn't cover enough the ableism that Paula showed in one of her sermons that I utilized as an example. I was talking more about the content of the speech and the speaking abilities that she had. I didn't address it as closely as I should have, that she was doing a rather offensive portrayal of a disabled person or a mobility disabled person. I know this is something that the disabled community experiences a lot, having their story stereotyped and told for them rather than being listened to, and I don't want to be part of that. Thank you to all of the commenters who brought this up to me and challenged me to look into the issue more, and I hope you all don't mind that it took me a second chance to get this right. I'm going to chalk it up to getting a little crunched on the editing for the last video, but I wanted to make sure that the ableism that she showed in that video is not okay. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and journey off into the Colorado wilderness. Or, well, I guess to start out, the Everglades. Lauren Opal Roberts was born in Altamont Springs, Florida on either December 15th or December 19th of 1986. It really depends on who you ask and what time frame you looked into the answer. Yeah, that's right. We haven't even gotten past her birthday before we encountered a controversy, albeit a minor one. Still, though, that should probably tell you a little bit about where this is headed. So as recently as December of 2021, Lauren's Facebook page listed her birthday as December 15th, 1986. And if you know anything about American politicians, you know they watch these Wikipedia pages like a hawk. They appear very high in Google search results, and they're often the first resource that a lot of potential voters and donors use to get a good idea of who a candidate is. So they have staff at all times monitoring and editing them as needed. So that's all to say that we can assume Lauren knew of and approved of that birth date being listed on her Wikipedia, at least for some time. However, her publicly available voter registration information lists her birthday as December 19th. Now, yeah, this is probably a minor clerical error, but Lauren and her team have gone out of their way to avoid talking about the subject. The woman who carried off this upset was born Lauren Opal Roberts in Altamont Springs, Florida on December 15th or 19th, 1986. Her Wikipedia biographical information shows that when she was 12, her family moved to the Montbello neighborhood in Denver and then to Aurora. Neither Boebert nor spokesperson Laura Carno would respond to questions about missing and conflicting details of Boebert's biography. I don't know why she didn't just put out a press release saying, "Hey y'all, my 9s look like 5s sometimes. Would y'all chill?" I would have bought that. Shoot, my cursive Qs look like 2s now because of the weird 90s obsession everyone had with teaching kids cursive. I understand typographical difficulties. And shoot, it doesn't even change her zodiac sign. She's a Sag one way or the other, right? Oh, and also as of this recording, the Wikipedia page has now been edited to reflect December 19th. Well, this whole birthday thing's a little strange, but it's not like the weirdest thing ever, right? Maybe things will smooth out a little bit for now and we can have a little bit of normalcy before things go haywire again. Lauren was born to mother Shawn Roberts Bentz and an unknown father who might be professional wrestler Stan Lane, who rose to prominence as part of 1980s tag teams The Midnight Express and The Fabulous Ones. Yeah, well, I think we can just go ahead and give up on that whole normalcy thing now. It's going to get weird and it's going to stay weird, isn't it? Also, can we talk about this picture for a second? Look at all the machismo dripping off that. I don't know about you, but I feel the urge to go out and buy a van and slap some dragons on the side of it. Well, let's hear Lauren's mother, Shawn, tell us a little bit more about this situation. My daughter, Lauren Opal Roberts, was born, oh my word, they censored the birthday here too, in Orlando, Florida. Her father is Stan Lane, a former professional wrestler who at the time was a member of the tag team The Fabulous Ones. When Stan learned I was pregnant, he encouraged me to have an abortion and said that the child would be damaged because of the steroids he had taken. But I chose to give my unborn child life. Stan did end our relationship when he learned I was pregnant and soon fled the state of Florida. It took until 1990 before he could be located in a place where the paternity papers were able to be served. Wrestling promoter Jim Cornette even noted that some of the other guys in the back would help Stan out when the court officials showed up to serve in the papers with "he went that-a-way" style hijinks, which I can only assume looked like this. But the paternity patrol would eventually catch up to old Stan in 1990, and he would be forced by a court of law to show up for a paternity blood test. Although even that part is screwy in this case. See, Sean and little Lauren got their blood tests administered at a publicly funded health clinic in Florida. Stan, who had moved to North Carolina by that time, got his test conducted at a private facility called Genetic Design. Both Stan and Laura were supposed to provide a thumbprint verification that they had attended the test. Sean did, but Stan didn't. It doesn't say if they made little Lauren do one, but I really hope they didn't. Additionally, Stan was supposed to provide a Polaroid photo of himself at the clinic for additional verification. However, the photo provided was later identified by Sean to be a promotional photo that he had taken as a wrestler years earlier. Now, as you can see from the quality here, it looks like it was taken on an iPhone -10 or something, so we're probably just gonna have to take our word for it. But this dude dodged a paternity suit for 4 years, so would you put it past him for real? But perhaps most damning of all, Stan's test was administered and verified by a phlebotomist named Karen Weary. In 1993, just 3 years later in 1993, Karen would be arrested for accepting payment to switch the results in another paternity suit, and she would be convicted of this charge in 1995. You know, I came into this story kind of thinking, oh, hey, Lauren Boebert's mom's crazy, ha ha ha. I'm starting to believe this. The dude had motive, he had means, he had opportunity. I think the dude fabricated this test, and he's Lauren Boebert's daddy. Am I a Stan Lane truther now? Sean would continue to file paternity suits for years against Stan, but was never able to gain any traction in the courts, even with Karen Weary's conviction. Eventually, she and Lauren did as all people snubbed by the legal system do, and started taking to social media to make her voice and story known. Comments like these here have been traced to several websites, including Facebook, YouTube, and local community event pages. Oh, will Stan Lane be there? Perhaps he can introduce his 26-year-old daughter, Lauren Roberts Boebert, who he has refused to acknowledge all these years. She looks so much like his mom, who just turned 93, and sadly has never met her granddaughter and her 4 great-grandchildren. By the way, I'm Stan's maternal first cousin. There might have been a 1990 paternity fraud, but 2013 autosomal DNA is awesome. Okay, real quick. That bottom part is actually a poorly edited copy-paste remnant. This message came to Sean from a helpful cousin of Stan's. Sean is not Stan's cousin. Please, seriously, proofread your messages, people. See, and weirder still, some of these posts even seem to have been written from Lauren herself's perspective rather than her mother's. Sean and Laura would make one final attempt at establishing Stan's paternity, filing a long letter with many sources with the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations. However, this case seems to have gone nowhere, and to this day, Lauren talks about her father in speeches in very vague terms of a divorce in Florida that may or may not be a lie. Whew. Okay, so let's recap real quick. We haven't made it out of Lauren Boebert's first day of existence on this planet, and we're already into Tiger King levels of drama. I'm starting to think this might have been a bad idea.
I have a bad feeling about these missions.
Lauren would live in Florida until 1998, when her mother would pack her and her 3 brothers up and move the whole family to Colorado. They would move to different towns throughout the state for a few years before settling in Rifle, Colorado.
The only city in America named after a gun.
And I assume it's named that way because of its founders, John and Henry Rifleman. Okay, so just out of curiosity, I went ahead and looked up the Rifle High School mascot. I was hoping it'd be something cool like the Snipers or something. Turns out it's just the Bears. Although, you know, now that I think about it, if I were playing high school sports and they announced that the Rifle Bears were going to be coming out, I'd probably just crap my pants and go home. Lauren has expressed that her mother was a lazy liberal throughout her childhood, and that this led to poverty and trauma.
My mom was a true blue Democrat, and she believed all of the lies that she was told, that she could not support me and my brothers on her own. She was told that if she went out to try to support us without the help of Democrat politicians, she would fail. And because of that, we grew up poor. When my mom needed groceries, she would send me to the store with the EBT card. Not fun.
And see, even this might not be true. An anti-Boebert PAC tied to her 2020 opponent Diane Mitch Bush, seen here wearing an outfit that looks kind of like a Roger disguise, found evidence that Lauren's mother had registered as a Republican as early as 2001. And see, something to note of here is Lauren's dismissal of this criticism. You can see even early in her political career that she's well learned from Trump the strategy of fade back into things that can't be proven while still advancing your point anyway. We moved here in 2000 and my mom still voted Democrat. I don't know about her party affiliation, Boebert said. I know that oil and gas was a huge influence, and so there could have been some influence there for her to register or something. But my mom and I have spoken nearly every election season, and we've always argued about votes. And see, to hear Lauren tell it, her first savior wasn't actually Donald Trump or even Jesus Christ, but actually Ronald McDonald. Acquiring her first job at 15 years old at a local McDonald's, Lauren would become a lifelong devotee to the Golden Arches. No wonder Trump liked her so much. Here's a selection from the Durango Herald. While in high school, she said that she worked her way up the ranks at McDonald's, eventually serving as a manager, a job that paid well. If need be and under different circumstances, she added, she might have continued with a rewarding career with the fast food outlet, a career that would have supported a family. Businesses like McDonald's are so vital to communities and to helping people not only get a start, but to provide jobs that people could actually stay connected to for the rest of their lives, she said. And they're often overlooked, as you know, mediocre or lesser than. But they're opportunity creators, and I'm just so grateful to have had that experience.
Remember, guys, real champs eat at McDonald's. I'm loving it. Can I get the check?
She also stated that she was, quote, happy to start earning a paycheck, but not to start paying taxes. In fact, this rejection of welfare and any kind of government assistance is going to become a central part of Lauren's brand, as you'll see throughout the episode.
We're here to tell government, we don't want your benefits, we don't want your welfare, don't come knocking on my door with your Fauci outie, you leave us the hell alone.
Sometime between 2003 and 2004, Lauren would begin dating Jason Boebert. Here we can see the happy couple looking like every pair of small-town high school sweethearts that share a joint Facebook page because someone got caught showing their dick to some teenagers. And see, this relationship was troubled even in the early days. In 2004, when Jason Boebert was 24, he was arrested for exposing himself to two young women at a Colorado bowling alley. His future wife, Lauren Roberts, as she was known then, who was 17 at the time, was also present and was told she was no longer welcome at the bowling alley. Jason Boebert pled guilty to public indecency and lewd exposure after the incident, according to the New York Post, and was sentenced to 4 days in jail with a subsequent 2 years on probation. Further reports indicate that Jason was actually trying to show these young women a tattoo he had on his little patriot. Go ahead and put down below in the comments what you think Jason Boebert has tattooed on his dick. It's like a fun minigame to distract you from the fact that for some reason in Colorado it was legal for a 24-year-old to date a 17-year-old. Oh, but Jason certainly wasn't done with his 2004 malarkey. He would go on from this incident to just a month later enact domestic violence on Lauren directly. Across both of these charges, Jason would only spend about 11 days in jail and 4 years on probation. I also assume he spent the entire year either smooth-talking or begging for forgiveness, considering Lauren married that fool in 2005. Lauren has 4 sons, and not a lot is known about them, and I think we should keep it that way. The only child with a notable story attached is her 3rd son, who was born in the back of a moving pickup truck in 2009. It was a bit of a local news story in Lauren's area. Lauren's son had quite a grand welcoming when he entered the world in the front seat of his dad's pickup truck July 12th with police sirens blaring. When we got to Newcastle, my water broke and I started pushing and couldn't stop, Lauren said. By the time we got to West Glenwood exit, the baby's head was out. I was just trying not to panic, she said. I was really scared, but I knew I couldn't be. My body kept pushing and I couldn't stop. She asked Jason to pull over so he could help her finish the job. Just as he pulled to the shoulder, she pushed the baby out the rest of the way. I caught him and pulled him up to my chest and I told Jason to just keep going, she said. Okay, no matter what else I'm gonna say about Lauren for this episode, that's kinda cool. I mean, giving birth to your son in the back of a moving pickup truck going down the highway, very Sarah Connor. During the period from 2005 to 2009, Lauren would transition to working with her husband in the Colorado energy sector. First, she would work as an assistant before moving to a direct pipeliner position. This period is also the time where Lauren would go on to rediscover her Christian faith, which is important since this is Fundie Fridays and not just James rants about politicians he doesn't like. With her husband's income stable, Boebert dipped out of the workforce for a bit to raise her young sons. She said she rediscovered her Christian faith at New Creation Center in Glenwood Springs and got involved in Bible studies and ministering to women at the Garfield County Jail, with a message that they didn't need to be bound by their past mistakes. She credits her faith for taking on opportunities and challenges that have come her way. I learned to have limitless thinking from reading the Bible, Boebert said. Now don't get me wrong, I appreciate prison outreach and I understand the powerful positive effect that Christianity can have on some folks' lives when they're trying to improve and better themselves. But even a minor look into Lauren's faith reveals some definite concerns. See, Lauren shows us here that she views Christian faith as an inseparable part of the American experience rather than a private, personal journey of salvation and faith.
I'm a member of the Freedom Caucus, and I wanted to be surrounded by these men and women because I knew they adhered to the Constitution. I know that that is a divinely inspired document, and I know the faith that our founding fathers had to create that document.
Oh, FYI, Thomas Jefferson believed that the Constitution should be rewritten every 20 years, and he wrote his own Bible where he cut out all the miracles. Also, him and all of his little founding father buddies were really just trying to cover their own white male Christian butts, so honestly, screw them. See, Lauren also shows us that her faith is primarily based on a separation between her and those faithful in the Lord like her, and everyone else who she deems the enemy.
I challenge you to look at the Word of God and take it as truth. When God tells you that nothing is impossible, I want you to agree with what God is saying. Do not agree with what the enemy is telling you about your circumstance. There's a lot going on in the world right now that we can argue about, we can debate about, we can complain, we can say there's no hope. But I refuse to agree with what the enemy is doing when I have the word of the Most High God that says we have the victory. I've read the end of this book, and church, we win.
Now, not even getting into this little hand gesture that she threw out in the middle of this, what she said here is something that should scare every American. Lauren doesn't really seem capable of thinking about what Christianity is without also thinking about what it isn't. She understands that there are good Christians and that there are bad people who try to hold the good Christians down. And she doesn't leave a lot of room for middle ground between those two concepts. Think about it, most of us watching this probably don't share a lot of views with Lauren, and it is pretty concerning to have people in Congress who consider people like us their spiritual enemy. And so what does Lauren think that the good Christians should do to all these bad people trying to stop their Christian utopian America?
I love the Constitution because it highlights we the people. And we the people are we the church. Amen. And church, this is our year. This is our time to rise up and show forth the goodness of God, the love of God. We sang about the love of God today. It is only the love of God that can draw men unto him.
I say the whole world must learn of our peaceful ways. By force.
Well, I don't know about you, but that sounds like Christian dominionism to me, but is that even surprising anymore? So, in review, Lauren thinks that Christians are righteous people who should hold leadership over everyone else in this country. She believes that the Constitution is a divinely inspired document that gives Christians the power they need to enact their leadership over everyone else, and she believes that anyone who stands in the way of this plan is the enemy, and as you might expect, Lauren holds the same forced birth and homophobic views that one would probably come to expect from her religious denomination. And see, that's all certainly bad on its own, but as we'll find out later, Lauren's idea of what it means to rise up is going to make it a lot worse. But we'll get there. In the meantime, we have handguns and pork sandwiches to get to. In 2013, Laura would very literally re-enter the workforce with a bang, founding Shooter's Grill of Rifle, Colorado with her husband. Shooter's was famous for its gimmick that all of its waitstaff open-carried firearms while performing their job duties. Lauren expresses that this unique dress code decision was brought about by an incident that occurred outside of her bar.
Shortly after we opened our restaurant, there was an altercation where a man was beat to death.
Outside of your restaurant?
I'm sorry?
Or where, this was
outside of my restaurant.
Yeah.
Outside of my restaurant, he was beat to death by another man. No weapons, no. And I immediately wondered, how am I going to protect everyone? How am I going to take care of the people around me? How am I going to take care of myself? I'm a mom, I have 4 boys. How am I going to protect them if there's a threat? And that's when I started looking into Colorado's carry laws. I took advantage of Colorado's open carry, and I began to carry in our restaurant. My waitresses began to carry, and I saw how Democrats want to take that right away from us.
See, official reports differ pretty wildly from this account, though. First, the man who passed away, named Anthony Green, actually instigated the fight in question, which no less was with an amputee and a minor. Further info on the situation comes from the Washington Post. Finally, the autopsy report written by forensic pathologist Robert Kurtzman less than 2 weeks after Green's body was found concluded that Green died of methamphetamine intoxication. Kurtzman noted that post-mortem examination of the decedent revealed that superficial abrasions consistent with a fall. The abrasions were not associated with any internal injury, whereas methamphetamine is known to cause sudden death and abnormal behavior. Kurtzman said that the death was accidental, the unintentional consequence of habitual drug use. That's it in a nutshell, Klein said. No one was charged with homicide for the case. So Boebert is wrong to claim that the man was beaten to death. If anything, Green appears to have been throwing most of the punches, and then he died of a drug overdose. So Republicans are once again out here trying to use guns to solve problems that really require more robust access to healthcare and mental health treatment. Tale as old as time, or at least as old as Charlton Heston. And to be honest, I think Lauren just likes any opportunity she gets to have being photographed with a gun. I swear, in the research for this episode, it was easier to find pictures of her with guns than it was to find pictures of her without guns. Really, I think she played a little bit too much Tomb Raider as a kid, because she seems to have bitten her entire style from Lara Croft. That very specific thing applies to her love of thigh holsters. Lauren loves a good thigh holster. I found so many photos of Lauren with thigh holsters that I made you all a montage.
I just went to the gun store and stole all the guns. I just smoked crack out of a gun. I just loaded up my gun with 32 little guns, and then I shot people with guns. I legally changed my first, middle, and last name to Gun. I just had both my hands surgically removed and replaced by guns. I walked out of the gun convention because there wasn't enough guns.
Now, Shooter's Grill, as best I can describe it, is kind of like the love child of an Applebee's and a Bass Pro Shop, if that child were conceived during a screening of the entire John Wick trilogy. There's no real consistent theme across any of the food, which runs the gamut from Asian to Tex-Mex to steakhouse to classic American diner.
Mexican, Asian, Indian. It sounds like a confusion.
But see, what Shooters lacks in menu cohesion, it more than makes up for in thematic cohesion. This menu is chock full of gun-themed dishes and Republican pandering. They've got all your fired-powered favorites, including the Target practice meal, the Daisy BB Black Bean Burger, the Guac 9 Burger with guacamole, the Swiss & Wesson, the Ruger Reuben, the Rifle Burger, the Springfield Salad, the Black Powder and Shotgun Burritos, the 6-Shooter Skillet, the Smoking Gun Scramble, the Rifle Breakfast, or my personal favorite, the French Rifle Toast. And don't forget to thank Jesus for your food, or to ask about our concealed carry classes offered by Legal Heat, with dinner included. Whew, yeesh. At this point, it might be a good idea to check your food for black powder and BBs before taking a bite. Besides, come on, your restaurant's called Shooters, it's in a town called Rifle, and literally everyone inside has a gun. It's kind of lazy to name your food after guns at this point. Lauren's time was stretched at this point. See, in the middle of founding her restaurant and getting that off the ground, she picked up a new hobby, getting arrested. Actually, this little legal habit of Lauren's began in 2010 when she was cited for dog ordinance violations in her hometown due to letting her 2 unleashed pit bulls run through her neighborhood. Following this, Lauren allegedly began harassing the individuals that she thought turned her in with obscene gestures and texts. A report was filed, but no charges were ever pursued. But in 2015, Lauren would receive her most high-profile arrest at the Country Jam Music Festival in Grand Junction, Colorado. According to reports of the incident, Lauren was upset with how some minors were being treated by police in regards to a potential underage drinking charge. She encouraged the youth to flee since they were not read their Miranda rights, and because of that, the police went over to arrest her for disturbing the peace. She would flail and twist away and start screaming at the police in an attempt to get away before finally succumbing. I gotta lie, that's kind of punk. Protecting the kids, fighting with the cops, doing it all at a music festival. Dude, my ACAB senses are tingling. Wait, never mind. She yelled that she had friends at Clocks News and the story would be national news. That's like the opposite of punk. To be fair, I probably should have seen that coming, shouldn't I? But Lauren wasn't done yet because she was absolutely determined not to show up for court on these charges. She was given the chance to reschedule her first appearance, citing that she forgot what day it was, but following the second missed appearance, she would be arrested and brought in on charges. Prosecutors eventually dismissed all of the charges against Lauren, citing a low chance of conviction if the charges were actually to go to trial. Man, Lauren Boebert must just have the best luck. And in 2016, Lauren would be cited again, albeit for the much less interesting charge of unsafe operation of a motor vehicle and reckless driving. But once again, Lauren decided to skip out on the court appearance. And this would lead to another arrest in early 2017. For this charge, Lauren would spend a grand total of 100 minutes in jail before posting bond and never seeing the inside of a cell again. That's less time than she would have needed to watch Disney Pixar's 2017 smash hit Cars 3. In her later run for office, Lauren would even secure the endorsement of arresting Sheriff Rod Farva, Lou Valerio, who had this to say. Of Boebert's arrest record, the sheriff said, "To me, that doesn't represent somebody who's engaging in criminal behavior. We don't continue to punish people. That's what our criminal justice system is all about." Man, I still have no idea how Lauren got so lucky to get such forgiveness from her local law enforcement. Rifle just must be a really progressive community is all. Oh, but wait, there's more. Later in June of 2017, Lauren would operate an unlicensed food cart outside of the Rifle Rodeo. Over 80 people, some as young as 7 years old, would become sick with food poisoning that was later tied to a batch of bad pork sliders that Lauren and her crew made for the event. The publicly available report from the Garfield County Health Department reports a staggering number of health code violations. I'm going to post it here, but don't pause to read unless you just want to get sick. And surely these would embarrass any reputable restaurant owner. But personally, I think the most damning revelation to come out of the whole thing was the fact that she was using Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Ma'am, you literally own a smokehouse, and you are using sauce we can get at Walmart? Shameful. Seriously, I only know one person on this planet that would be okay with that.
Sweet Baby Ray's is very good.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Shoot, considering all this nonsense, it's surprising that up to this point, Lauren had only closed 2 restaurants, and even then, one of them she didn't own at the time it went under. The original Shooters is still around to this day, serving, bullet sandwiches or whatever, and the Boeberts never really faced any consequences for their sliders of mass destruction. I cannot imagine why her local health department didn't pursue her more aggressively. But, Lauren just sure is lucky to live in such a wonderful community like Rifle. Now, you may not believe me when I say this, but 2018 actually seems to be a pretty calm year in Lauren's life, the only one in the past decade. Let's all take this moment for a little break, shall we? Alright, enough of that shit. It goes back to DEFCON Boebert in 2019, so we gotta get moving. See, Lauren would go straight from all of these various legal issues straight into a boisterous debut into the world of American politics. She would start off by participating in a time-honored Republican tradition, namely that of making Beto O'Rourke look bad.
State Representative Tom Sullivan, whose son Alex died in the theater, introduced her work, while Lauren Boebert drove 3 hours from Rifle, openly carrying a handgun to confront the presidential candidate.
I was one of the gun-owning Americans that heard your speech regarding hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s. Well, I am here to say hell no, you're not.
And if he's going to send people into homes to take people's personal property, then he's got a big issue on his hands.
Seriously, first Ted Cruz, then Lauren Boebert, probably Greg Abbott soon enough. I feel like Beto is just cursed to keep taking big fat L's from the worst the Republican Party has to offer. He's like Abby Shapiro. The only people who benefit from him are the ones who actively laugh at everything he stands for. But enough about Beto. Let's make like Democratic voters and keep ignoring him. After this, Lauren would continue to insert herself into the pro-gun subculture of Colorado, including organizing a We Will Not Comply Second Amendment rally in Denver some months later. Here we can see Lauren announcing this Second Amendment rally like it's some sort of church fundraiser with her friend Sharona Bishop. Sharona would go on to serve as Lauren's campaign manager for a time too, as she would announce her candidacy against Scott Tipton in the primary for Colorado's 3rd District.
Hey everyone, this is Sharona Bishop with America's Mom.
And Lauren Boebert with Shooter's Grill.
We are reminding you that in just 3.5 very short weeks from now, we are going to be holding the largest Second Amendment rally
ever
at the People's House, our house, the state capitol.
Yes, December 7th, it will be Colorado's largest rally ever for the Second Amendment, the greatest amendment in our Bill of Rights, because it absolutely protects and asserts every other right that we have.
Damn, get you a man that looks at you the way that Lauren looks at my Sharona here, am I right? See, maybe it's me, but I feel like at this point in her career, Lauren's power dynamic with Sharona was a little bit tilted the other way, if you know what I mean. It reminds me of something, but I can't exactly place it. Although Jen wants me to clarify that she thinks this applies better to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and she might be right with what we'll see later, but we're getting there. Anyway, this big event that these two are hyping up as the biggest demonstration of Second Amendment support in Denver and Colorado's history, that whole thing, well, it ended up looking like this, and I don't know about you, but that's not really giving me biggest Second Amendment rally ever vibes. It was also jam-packed with some very far-right fringe groups, including the Three Percenters, Bikers for Trump, and the Proud Boys. And interestingly, Sharona would actually end up being booted from Lauren's campaign due to her infatuation with the Proud Boys. An interview she did with one of their members surfaced several months into Lauren's campaign, where she had this to say about the organization. The former top aide to Lauren Boebert, a Republican candidate for U.S. Congress in Colorado on a meteoric rise within President Donald Trump's political sphere, hosted a self-proclaimed member of the Proud Boys on a Facebook video last year, in which she described the group as pro-everything that makes America great. Bishop concludes the video by saying, "Thank God for you guys and the Proud Boys." Lauren would move into the conspiracy theory realm in 2020. She gave an interview with noted conspiracy journalist Ann Vandersteel, where she expressed both interest and belief in the QAnon conspiracy. While the tape of this interview seems to have been scrubbed from the internet at this point, we do have reports that come from both AP and Colorado Public Radio. Boebert's sole known comments on QAnon came during a May interview with internet journalist Ann Vandersteel, whose site highlights other conspiracy theories. Vandersteel asked Boebert what she thought of the Q movement. Boebert said she knew about it from her mother, who was a little fringe. Pressed, she added, "If this is real, it could be really great for our country. It only means America is getting stronger and better, and people are returning to conservative values, and that's what I'm for," she went on to say. At this point in her political career, Lauren was far enough out on the fringe that Donald Trump even endorsed her opponent, Tipton. But Lauren pressed through with her strategy, calling Tipton a secret liberal while also insisting that she was the true Colorado Trumper, even if Donald Trump didn't know it yet.
I'm Lauren Boebert. I'm running for Congress, and I approve this message.
Scott Tipton co-sponsored H.R. 6467, teaming up with AOC and her squad to give Boulder a bailout. Then, Scott Tipton joined Nancy Pelosi to give amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants and forced taxpayers to pay $1 billion for their housing.
Lauren also found another cause du jour in 2020 with the COVID pandemic. She was quick to use her position as a small restaurateur to fly in the face of COVID protection laws and recklessly decide which ones she did or did not feel comfortable following. From CBS Denver.
Fairfield County Health Department has suspended the food license of Shooter's Grill in the town of Rifle. Its owner, Lauren Boebert, defied state health orders and served people. Yesterday, we showed you how the Western Slope restaurant was moving to outdoor dining. The staff roped off parking spaces and set up tables to serve customers. The county commissioners say this is still against the rules because staff is not allowed to wait on tables.
Shortly after 5 p.m., Garfield County Public Health stopped by and suspended my food license. So we are not serving food until I meet with them on Monday morning at 9 a.m.
And once again, Lauren gets to dodge actual consequences. All she had to do was wait a week, and the county was bullied into opening up restaurants at 50% capacity. Her hearing was continued from May 18th until Tuesday morning until the county's motion was filed and Boebert agreed to have the case dropped. It would not have been appropriate to discuss holding her to an inapplicable standard, Williams said of the reasoning for vacating the court action. In the meantime, the county attorney's office is working with legal counsel for Boebert to reopen the restaurant in accordance with the county's variance and the state's relaxed rules, Williams said. Lauren would go on from all of this to absolutely pummel Scott Tipton in the Republican primary, winning the race with over 9% of the vote and stunning political analysts, as this was the first time in 48 years that a sitting incumbent had been beaten in the primary in Colorado. Lauren would seize and continue this momentum moving into the general election against Democrat Diane Mitch Bush, who we discussed earlier. This time, though, Lauren would come into the race with Trump's full endorsement, which he tweeted out after her victory over Tipton, although it's kind of hard to find Trump's tweets anymore. That never gets old. Now see, this race between Mitch Bush and Boebert was considered a highly competitive one in the area. While Lauren herself was riding a large wave of momentum after the Tipton victory, she still was a fringe outsider, and Democrats saw her as someone they could beat. Both sides pumped a lot of money into their respective campaigns. Both Boebert and Mitch Bush would lean on COVID response as a primary issue and generally focused on national more than local issues. Mitch Bush, 70, held only virtual events during the pandemic, citing public health concerns. Boebert, by contrast, held lots of in-person events and greeted voters without a mask. In the end, though, Lauren would claim victory over Mitch Bush in one of Colorado's closest elections that year, and she would make her way to Congress, being sworn in on January 5th of 2021. Lauren would immediately set about with her primary goal as an elected official, namely being a Republican disruptor. For the rest of us, that means that she looked to enact as much performative nonsense as she possibly could, while advancing very few actual policy positions. Notably, Lauren was one of the loudest voices in the room on January 6, 2021, protesting the certification of Arizona's Electoral College votes. She started her day with this tweet and really just held on to that energy through the rest of the day.
If we allow state election laws as set forth by state legislatures to be ignored and manipulated on the whims of partisan lawsuits, unelected bureaucrats, unlawful procedures, and arbitrary rules, then our constitutional republic will cease to exist. The oath that I took this past Sunday to defend and support the Constitution makes it necessary for me to object to this travesty. Otherwise, the laws passed by the legislative branch merely become suggestions to be accepted, rejected, or manipulated by those who did not pass them.
Yeah, that's certainly not good, but given what we know about January 6th now, what Lauren's about to say is much, much worse.
Madam Speaker, I have constituents outside this building right now. I promised my voters to be their voice. In this branch of government, which I now serve, it is my separate but equal obligation to weigh in on this election and object.
All right, and let's just go ahead and remind ourselves who these patriotic constituents outside the building were. Okay, there they are. Yep, that's them. And see, while the lunatic rabble was starting to break down the doors of our Congress, Lauren didn't bother to stay with them and accepted the evacuation plan like every other congressperson. That being said, she did make sure to keep them abreast of Congress and Speaker Pelosi's movements with helpful tweets. And following the January 6th insurrection, Lauren would become a central figure to the story in several ways. For instance, she utilized the Capitol Hill metal detectors installed shortly after the incident to do a little bit of Republican street theater.
Congresswoman Boebert also talked to Sean about being stopped by police as she went through a metal detector just installed at all entrances to the House chamber. Boebert refused to let police search her bag, but she says that she is following all the laws and rules with regard to firearms, including not bringing one into the chamber.
While I was at that entrance, 8 to 10 other members went through another entrance without stopping. And so then I think the go-ahead was given to the officer to allow me to pass through, and I did. And today, I did not stop to be searched anytime that I entered the chambers either.
Wow, Lauren, can't even imagine why Capitol Police would want to stop you in particular. Around this time, Lauren would also come under fire for an unauthorized tour she was seen giving to a group of unknown individuals outside the Capitol. While Lauren is insistent that this was just a family tour, her mother is a known QAnon wackadoo, and they weren't supposed to be giving tours to anyone due to COVID anyway, so this whole thing just stinks.
Did a freshman congresswoman give a large group a tour of the Capitol in the days leading up to the insurrection? That is what one top House Democrat, Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee, told CNN earlier today.
We saw Congressman Boebert taking a group of people for a tour sometime after the 3rd and before the 6th. I don't remember the day we were walking in the Cannon tunnel. We saw her and commented that who she was, and she had a large group with her. Now, whether they were people that were involved in the insurrection or not, I do not know. She was a freshman. She might have had a large number of people coming to be with her on this historic occasion and just wanting to give them the opportunity to have a tour. But it was pretty clear that her team is the team. She's not on the home team. She was with the visitors.
And in February of 2021, Lauren would be called out by financial analysts for some very shady reports on her mileage reimbursement forms stemming from her 2020 campaign. See, from the period between April and November of 2020, Lauren filed for the reimbursement of travel expenses through her campaign funds totaling a little over $20,000. These analysts highlighted that in order for that to be true, Lauren would have had to have driven a nearly inhuman 38,000 miles. And see, Lauren's team swears she actually did drive that much, but just for contrast, Representative Don Young from freaking Alaska filed just under $10,000 in travel reimbursement from his campaign funds in that same time frame, and he lives in a suburb of the North Pole. And Lauren would keep this momentum going into March as well, leaning farther into QAnon than she ever had before at a town hall in Montrose, Colorado, which was only marketed to certain Republican voters in the district.
Head of the CIA, Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
Are these people, will they ever be held accountable and
I
ever
sure hope so.
have a perp walk?
So we are seeing a lot of ugliness uncovered, a lot of corruption exposed. I heard someone who is in very close contact with President Trump and the ins and outs of the White House under that administration talk to the owners of Epic Times. They talked to the owners of Epic Times and they said, don't change anything. You are right over the target. So anyone who tries to tell you that this is a fringe newspaper, media, don't listen to them. I mean, I have very good sources to say this is really good information. Is it 100%? I don't know, but it's really good information. And we all know that there was information that was declassified just a few days before President Trump left office. And I know someone who is involved in declassifying that, and this person is getting very tired of waiting on the DOJ to do something about it. And we will be hearing about it very, very soon.
Lauren would take a summer break from April to about August of 2021, when she would reappear in the public consciousness for this tweet. I'm just going to leave that up there without any analysis or opinions, because holy shit, dude. However, I do think that she might have been worried that this tweet would be interpreted to believe that she was actually okay with certain other races and subcultures, because Lauren immediately set about straightening the record on that. Not to mention the fact that around this time she had to draw some heat off the fact that she had been caught using campaign funds to pay shooters' utility bills. But in September of 2021, Lauren would make sure everyone knew exactly how she felt about noted conservative boogie woman Representative Ilhan Omar. Unfortunately, footage from this event seems really hard to find anymore, but lucky for us, Lauren is so thoughtful that she repeated and extrapolated on it about 2 months later in November.
And I see a Capitol police officer running hurriedly to the elevator. I see fret all over his face, and he's reaching, and I'm like, what? The door's shutting. Like, I can't open it. Like, what's happening? I look to my left, and there she is, Ilhan Omar. Oops. And I said, well, she doesn't have a backpack. We should be fine.
Oh, don't worry. Lauren didn't limit her Islamophobia to comfy Republican dinners either. She was more than happy to take that nonsense straight to the House floor.
But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds.
Oh, and that whole complaint from Lauren is super rich, considering the fact that she didn't disclose that her worthless husband makes most of his money as an energy consultant, while she herself sat on the House Committee of Natural Resources. And see, you may have just noticed that we just covered almost the entire first year of Lauren's political career, and barely discussed any of her actual policy positions. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's really good at beefing with everybody in range, but that's not what she was elected to do. So regarding her positions, you can kind of just assume that if the GOP likes it, then Lauren likes it. She doesn't tend to deviate from the Republican platform very often, and when she does, it's only to go further out to the right than everyone else. Lauren's also learned very well and very quickly from the GOP chain of command in the House, most notably Mitch McConnell. Like McConnell, Lauren is much more interested in preventing people, most notably Democrats, from getting anything done, rather than actually getting anything done on her own. She opposed the Trump impeachment. She opposed mask mandates and COVID safety measures. She opposes critical race theory. She opposes gay marriage. She opposes abortion. And as we've seen in regards to her work continuation at Shooters and her defiance of capital metal detection policy, Lauren just absolutely loves being photographed in defiance of laws Republicans don't like. Which you can translate as laws that promote basic safety for vulnerable people. The only thing that really seems to push Lauren to actually write bills and shit is the energy sector. Boebert has been a staunch advocate for the energy industry during her first 6 months in the office, introducing a bill in February seeking to bar the president from issuing moratoriums on oil and gas leasing and permitting on some federal land. And see, while it's not totally uncommon for freshman members of Congress to not really be able to get anything done, most of the other 16 bills that Lauren has introduced have either been minor procedural issues or otherwise drawn to draw attention to herself rather than making any actual change. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with a sitting congressperson utilizing their authority to help out a small local community in their district. That's kind of what they're there for. But the lack of serious output for anything other than the energy sector, which we know she personally profits from, does demonstrate a desire to perform more than to lead. And all of this takes us to 2022, where Lauren's most notable hijinks would likely be those she perpetrated at the State of the Union address. Here, Lauren would form a tag team with fellow friend of the channel Marjorie Taylor Greene in attempting to heckle President Biden as he spoke. First, Lauren thought it would be an excellent idea to try and call Biden out for the death of 13 American troops. Not necessarily a bad thing to criticize the president for, but maybe don't do it while he's talking about his deceased son who was also a soldier?
And they come home. Many of the world's fittest and best trained warriors in the world. Never the same. Headaches, numbness, dizziness. A cancer that would put them in a flag-draped coffin. I know. One of those soldiers was my son, Major Boebert. I don't know for sure if the burn pit that he lived near, that his hooch was near, in Iraq and earlier than that in Kosovo, is the cause of his brain cancer, the disease of so many other troops.
And later, the two would use a portion of Biden's speech discussing immigration reform to try and get a build the wall chant going, like two sloppy drunks at a ball game going for the wave.
We need to secure our border and fix the immigration system.
Yep, that's officially the worst tag team I've seen since Y2AJ. Hey Lauren, your dad would get that joke. Too bad he knows more about wrestling trivia than he does about sending the child support payments on time, right? Hey, I can say that. I have a deadbeat dad too, so there. Lauren has also announced that she will be running again in 2022 for a second term as the representative from her district. She's already facing a wide array of Democratic challengers, along with a Republican ironically seeking to challenge her in the primary. And all of this brings us to the present day. As I recall, I compared the Paula White deep dive to kind of a roller coaster, and if that's the case, then I would consider this deep dive into Lauren Boebert kind of like riding a missile into a Middle Eastern village sitting on top of crude oil. And once again, we have a subject here where I'm somewhat torn. On one hand, Lauren is in many regards exactly the type of person I want to go to Congress. She was born poor. She came from a single-parent household. She had children young. She survived domestic violence to build a successful business and a life for her and her family. I really do want people like that in Congress. But once again, I'm reminded why politics would be great if it weren't for all of that complexity and nuance we have to deal with. See, like many people I know who came from struggle and difficulty, Lauren has unfortunately interpreted her successes as a kind of single-handed victory over forces that would hold her down. She blatantly ignores all of the privileges she does have, being white, being Christian, having roots in a community, and the default trust that all of those things afford an individual. Lauren, in her time, has broken the law, poisoned the populace, heckled the president, and supported an insurrection, and she's still here to tell the tale, cash the checks, and she even has her damn seat. If that doesn't reveal to her how her white privilege has benefited her, I wonder if anything ever could.
God has done extraordinary things in my life for many years now, but the one that's been on display the most would be where I am today, in the position that I hold. And that's not necessarily a credit to me or to my abilities or to my talents. In fact, it was a great work of God to get me here. So many people said, you are unqualified, you are uneducated, you only have a GED, girlfriend, what are you going to do with that?
And see, Lauren, I think I'm starting to get the misunderstanding now. What you call blessings from God, the rest of us might call the benefits of your privileges. And I find myself particularly irritated with Lauren as someone who did make it to Congress with only a GED, because that could have been such a good thing. Hell, she only got the damn thing a few months before she even got elected. And in my opinion, that's badass. Or at least it's badass in a vacuum. Having spent years in community social work, I can say that folks with a minimal amount of formal education can provide a critical kind of wisdom and experience that is tragically missing from the halls of our government right now. There are many problems for which the best insights come from living and working on the ground rather than studying in the classroom. In any other circumstance, I would be thrilled to have someone with as little formal education as Lauren make it. The problem is, as far as I'm concerned, Lauren doesn't act with the wisdom of a tough life lived well. In fact, she speaks and acts with all of the ignorance her opponents accuse her of.
When I first arrived in Congress, I think one of the most surprising things to me was how many men and women are there for the right reasons. How many Christians are actually serving in office right now. Wow. I'm a member. I thought there were only about 4. There happens to be quite a few more than that.
And see, I think this clip highlights Lauren's ignorance in 2 distinct ways. First of all, the fact that Congress is predominantly white and Christian shouldn't come as a surprise to any American adult. Hell, it shouldn't come as a surprise to any American high school student. I understand that I may have some educational privilege in what I'm saying here, but I also know for a fact that Lauren has access to Google, and this is front page shit. Resistance to learning should not be a desirable trait in a U.S. representative. But see, beyond that, Lauren reveals that she believes people can only be righteous, effective leaders with the best interests of their constituents at heart if they also share her very particular Christian faith. Lauren believes that she is good, that God has rewarded her for that, and that people who believe like her can achieve the same. And likewise, she thinks that people who are not like her are trying to hold people like her down. Lauren responds to all of these privileges and blessings by doggedly taking the most selfish stance she possibly can with every issue she encounters. Most real problems and social issues she treats like simple rhetorical tools for use in her ad campaigns and various speeches, and the only issues that are truly close to her heart seem to be the ones that line her pockets and keep her in power. Lauren represents the fuck you, I got mine mentality that has come to define the Republican Party, and maybe has always defined the Republican Party. Use every advantage you can, ethical or not, and then when you do succeed, celebrate and defend those achievements as if everyone had the exact same chances that you had at success. Like Paula White, I find Lauren to be upsetting because, quite frankly, I feel like she should know better. I'm not one of these people who believes that trauma exists to make us stronger, but I like to believe that folks who have been through trauma can be more empathetic to the concerns of others and cognizant of the fact that every human being suffers with a variety of struggles that others may not know. I personally know a lot of struggling moms with GEDs who would make way better representatives than Lauren. I bet most of you watching this video would be a better elected official than Lauren because I've seen how caring and empathetic this audience can be, even in the face of incredible trauma. I want poor folks in Congress. I want disabled folks in Congress. I want sex workers and transgender folks and people who've been to prison. All of them. I want them in Congress. I want disenfranchised, oppressed people to be given access to the tools they need to protect others like them from the harms society perpetrated on them. And I really hope that people like that would be looking to use that power to protect others rather than advance themselves. Our new Congress is as diverse as it's ever been, and while that's not really that much to speak of, it's still progress. And I'm not going to pretend that Lauren didn't contribute to that diversity in her own way. But quite frankly, I know people who have struggled more than her, who act with less selfishness and more kindness than she could ever seem to muster, and who I think would be more effective elected officials and leaders than she could ever hope to be. Fuck off, Lauren, and take your nasty pork sliders with you. All right. Well, that's the end of our deep dive into Lauren Boebert. Thank you all again for joining me on another one of these crazy deep dives. Be sure to like, share, and consensually smash that subscribe button. Check out our merch store on Bonfire if you're interested in some t-shirts. We have all kinds of social media. We'd love to chat with you on TikTok, Discord, Instagram. We have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel financially. Our Patreon does help us out a lot. It helps make sure that we can pay our bills and put all of our available energy into Fundie Fridays and the projects involved, so thank you so much for that. Jen put in the script to give some advice and final thoughts. My only advice would be do something kick-ass this weekend, and if that means brushing your teeth or rolling out of bed, then that was kick-ass. I love you all. You're the coolest people on earth, and I'll see you next time.
Howdy, folks. You know, that Lauren Boebert's a real patriot. You know, or so she imagines herself to be as she attacks Muslims and mostly attacks decent human beings. But so I got a little song for her and her husband, based on a true story. It's kind of a little ballad, I guess. When the Boeberts finish up a night of bowling, before they leave the bar to go sleep off the booze, they could get on Twitter for some late night trolling, or they could shop online for more high heel shoes. But old Jason has a different great idea, and it's as patriotic as the flag soft furls. He says to his penis, it'd be great to see ya, and I'd like to show you to a couple girls.